WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. here in Dakar and Accra and 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Heads of state and global representatives converge on Accra for first Reparatory Justice Summit.
This session will focus on shaping a comprehensive global post-adoption framework in an outcome document that reflects the aspirations and priorities of affected communities worldwide.
Ivorian Defense Minister Wadr reaffirms security cooperation with AES bloc to fight insurgency. An appeals court in Ouagadougou set to resume hearing into assassination of investigative journalist Zongo on June 18. And Niger cracks down on corruption with new penalties for public fund embezzlement, including a death sentence.
Oui, les peines sont dissuasives.
Yes, the penalties are a deterrent. When someone wants to embezzle or steal from the state, they will think twice before doing so.
Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to all of our listeners across the sub-region and beyond. Well, the Ghanaian capital Accra is hosting a 3-day international summit on reparatory justice, bringing together world leaders, legal experts and civil society actors to chart the next phase of the global campaign for reparations over slavery and colonial injustices. The meeting follows the adoption of a landmark United Nations resolution recognizing the transatlantic trafficking and enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. Nadi Dete reports.
Ghana has become the center of global discussions on reparatory justice as a high-level summit opens in Accra today. The 3-day Next Step Summit on reparatory justice is expected to bring together heads of state, ministers, legal experts, scholars, and representatives from more than 80 countries. The conference comes less than 3 months after the United Nations General Assembly adopted a landmark resolution recognizing the transatlantic trafficking and enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. Ghana spearheaded the resolution on behalf of the African Union member states. President John Dramani Mahama, who serves as the African Union champion on reparatory justice, is hosting the summit as part of efforts to translate international recognition into practical measures and long-term frameworks for reparations. Among those expected to participate are leaders from Liberia, Senegal, Barbados, and Sao Tome and Principe, alongside academics, civil society groups, and members of the African diaspora. French President Emmanuel Macron is also expected to address the gathering virtually. Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa says the conference marks a critical shift from acknowledgement to action.
The conference will commence with a meeting of senior officials and technical experts at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, building on extensive virtual consultations already undertaken across regions. This session will focus on shaping a comprehensive global post-adoption framework in an outcome document that reflects the aspirations and priorities of affected communities worldwide.
The summit is expected to produce recommendations for the United Nations and establish new mechanisms to advance reparatory justice, including expert and legal advisory panels. Discussions will also focus on restitution of cultural artifacts, legal pathways for reparations, and strengthening cooperation between Africa, the Caribbean, and the wider diaspora. The conference will conclude on Friday with participants expected to outline a roadmap aimed at sustaining global momentum on reparatory justice. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Meanwhile, ECOWAS chairman and Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada have called for stronger regional cooperation to address mounting security challenges in West Africa and the Sahel. Speaking after talks with Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Sheikh El Ghazouani in Nouakchott, Bio stressed the need for collective action against terrorism, organized crime, food insecurity, climate-related pressures, and displacement. Bio, who was in Mauritania for a 2-day working visit, described the country's role as a key partner in promoting regional peace and security. For his part, President Ghazouani reaffirmed his government's commitment to working closely with ECOWAS and proposed a regional summit on security. The two leaders concluded their meeting by pledging to strengthen cooperation in support of peace, stability, and sustainable development across the region. Now, Côte d'Ivoire says regional cooperation remains the key to defeating extremist groups operating across the region, as it reiterates its willingness to cooperate with the AES bloc. Abidjan said it has largely succeeded in keeping the jihadist threat at bay, but authorities insist the fight against terrorism is far from over. Augustin Koli completes the story.
Speaking on the sidelines of the Eurosatory 2026 International Defense Exhibition in France, Ivorian Defense Minister Tenim Birahima Ouattara stressed that terrorism cannot be defeated by any one country acting alone and called for greater collaboration. The appeal is particularly directed at Mali and Burkina Faso, two countries facing persistent jihadist violence along borders shared with Côte d'Ivoire. However, relations with Bamako and Ouagadougou have remained strained since military coups brought new leaders to power in both countries. While Côte d'Ivoire has no terrorist bases identified on its territory and no attacks have been claimed in recent years, security officials remain on high alert. The country's last deadly terrorist attack occurred in 2021. But the recent April 25 coordinated attacks across Mali remain a concern for regional authorities, including in Abidjan. Beyond military action, Ouattara emphasized the importance of tackling the root causes of extremism, noting that poverty and underdevelopment create fertile ground for terrorist recruitment, particularly among young people in vulnerable communities. As a result, Côte d'Ivoire says its counter-terrorism strategy combines security measures with development investments aimed at reducing marginalization and strengthening the state's presence in at-risk areas.
Augustin Curley filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, crossing to the Sahel, precisely Burkina Faso, the Court of Appeal in Ouagadougou will tomorrow, June 18, 2026, resume hearing to examine appeals linked to the assassination of investigative journalist Norbert Zongo and 3 of his colleagues. According to official records, they were found dead in a burned vehicle in December 1998. The hearing will determine whether the case can proceed to trial nearly 3 decades after the killings shocked Burkina Faso and the wider region. Among those charges, Francois Compaoré, the younger brother of former President Blaise Compaoré, who investigators have identified as the alleged mastermind. The case remains a powerful symbol of the quest for justice, with victims' families, media professionals, and human rights groups continuing to demand the truth. In neighboring Mali, the legal saga surrounding anti-corruption activist Clement Dembélé has taken a fresh and controversial twist as the Supreme Court declined to rule on his appeal. Dembélé has been in custody since November 2023, accused of threatening transitional president General Assimi Goïta in an audio message circulated on social media. The latest development is likely to reignite concerns among rights groups and supporters who have long called for his release. Veronique Njoy tells us more.
A technical analysis conducted in March 2024 concluded that the voice in the recording was not Clement Dembélé's voice. Following that finding, the investigating judge ordered Dembélé's release on several occasions and eventually dismissed the case, citing a lack of evidence. However, prosecutors from the Cybercrime Unit and the Court of Appeal challenged those decisions and requested a new expert examination. Dembélé's lawyers appealed to the Supreme Court, but the court declared the appeal inadmissible, citing the absence of a receipt proving payment of a procedural fee required for transferring the case from the Court of Appeal. Supporters and close associates of Dembélé accuse authorities of deliberately obstructing the judicial process to keep him in detention. The Supreme Court prosecutor has not publicly responded to the allegations. The decision has also drawn concerns from the international community, including the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, which expresses concern about the situation. Human rights NGOs are calling on Malian authorities to ensure the case is finally reviewed and respect the right to liberty for Dembele and others facing similar situations. Despite repeated judicial findings in his favor, Clement Dembele remains in prison.
Miranda Kanjai with those details. In Niger, the transitional authorities have introduced tougher penalties for the embezzlement of public funds, including the possibility of life imprisonment for those found guilty by a court of law. The new measures form part of a broader effort to strengthen the fight against corruption and enhance accountability in the management of state resources. From now on, any public official who embezzles less than 2 million CFA francs risks 1 to 3 years in prison. Between 2 and 200 million, the perpetrator could face up to 30 years in prison. An embezzlement of up to 500 million will result in life imprisonment, while the death penalty would be the sentence for any official who embezzles 1 billion CFA francs. Kani Abdullah is a civil society activist.
When someone is caught embezzling public funds and their guilt is established, the law must be applied, and it is being applied. It will be applied because it is the law. It is in the penal code. Now, will that prevent the embezzlement of public funds? I'm not entirely sure, because both the embezzlement of public funds and corruption are as old as the world. So, since embezzlement of public funds is quite simply theft, it is theft.
Clair comme on le dit, c'est du vol. Oui, les peines sont dissuasives.
Yes, the penalties are a deterrent, even a persuasive one. This means that indeed, when someone wants to embezzle or steal from the state, from public funds, they will think twice before doing so. This is how I see it. For me, it's educational, because people will be more careful, if you allow me the expression, before trying to embezzle public funds.
Civil society activist Kani Abdullah speaking there. Now, the Nigerian government says it has taken steps to end open grazing by identifying 470 gazetted grazing reserves across the country for the rehabilitation and resettlement of pastoralists. Authorities say the move is part of broader efforts to modernize Nigeria's livestock sector and reduce conflicts associated with uncontrolled cattle movement. Correspondent T.H. Nusasicho reports.
Minister of Livestock Development, Idi Meha, says the initiative is aimed at improving livestock productivity, strengthening disease control, and reducing the movement of cattle across cities and communities. According to the minister, pastoralists are being encouraged to adopt a sedentary lifestyle, with government planning to provide support within designated grazing reserves. Meha also says the government is introducing animal identification technologies to improve livestock management and tracking. He argues that long-distance cattle movement is no longer sustainable and has contributed to low productivity in the livestock sector. The government says the initiative forms part of the implementation of the National Dairy Policy Framework aimed at boosting local milk production and transforming Nigeria's livestock industry. The announcement comes amid ongoing national conversations around open grazing, ranching, and farmer-herder relations, with authorities expressing confidence that the new approach will improve productivity and reduce conflict. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Heads of state and global representatives converge on Accra for first Reparatory Justice Summit. Ivorian Defense Minister Wadr reaffirms security cooperation with AES bloc to fight insurgency. An appeals court in Ouagadougou set to resume hearing into assassination of investigative journalist Zongo on June 18. And Niger cracks down on corruption with new penalties for public fund embezzlement, including a death sentence. Well, still ahead in the news, President Ouattara of Liberia shows a thorough investigation and dismantling of a drug cartel after a $19 million cocaine bust last week. We do have a guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We are streaming live on wadr.org and also follow live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. In Liberia, President Joseph Boakai has ordered a full-scale investigation into the seizure of cocaine worth an estimated $19 million at the country's main international airport. The directive came during a national address on Tuesday amid growing public concern over delays by the Drug Enforcement Agency in naming suspects linked to the 237-kilogram drug haul. The seizure is Liberia's second largest narcotics bust in the past 4 years, following the interception of cocaine valued at around $100 million at the free port of Monrovia in 2022. Our Monrovia correspondent, Abraham Parker, reports.
President Joseph Boakai has directed the National Joint Security under the authority of the National Security Council to conduct a full-scale investigation into the case. According to the president, the investigation will focus not only on individuals directly connected to the shipment, but also on identifying and dismantling the wider criminal network responsible for financial coordinating and facilitating the operation. The Liberian leader also announced stronger cooperation with international law enforcement agencies to do intelligence sharing, forensic analysis, financial trafficking, and cross-border investigations.
This investigation will follow the evidence wherever it leads. No institution will be shielded from scrutiny. No criminal network will escape justice.
Security experts warn that large-scale narcotics operations often drive corruption, weaken institutions, and pose serious risks to young people and communities. While authorities are yet to release the names of individuals connected to the shipment, the president says no one will be considered untouchable as investigators work to uncover the full scope of what appears to be a sophisticated international trafficking network. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Meanwhile, authorities in Senegal have announced the seizure of nearly 1 ton of cocaine during a major anti-drug operation in the country's central region. The whole valued at more than 58 billion CFA francs, or over $102 million, is among the largest cocaine seizures recorded in Senegal in recent years. The operation comes as West African countries intensify efforts to crack down on drug trafficking, following major seizures in Liberia and ongoing investigations into suspected regional trafficking networks. Senegalese authorities say the latest bust highlights growing cooperation across the region to disrupt transnational criminal organizations and drug smuggling routes. As Africa marked the Day of the African Child on Tuesday, the Gambian government renewed its pledge to safeguard the rights and well-being of children across the country. Officials said the commemoration serves as a reminder that every child deserves access to quality education, healthcare, protection, and opportunity to thrive. This year's observance is centered on ensuring that all children in Africa have access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene services, essentials that remain out of reach for millions across the continent. WDL sang the amended report from Banjul.
Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Fatou Kinte, says the day provides an opportunity to reflect on progress made in advancing children's rights while addressing challenges that continue to affect children across the Gambia and the wider continent. The minister calls for collective action to create a safe and supportive environment for every child.
The Day of the African Child has become a platform for governments, civil society, and communities to reaffirm their dedication to building an Africa fit for its children. Sustainable water resource management is not only vital for health and dignity, but also central to achieving Agenda 2063 of the African Union, strengthening climate resilience, and securing inclusive socio-economic development for all.
According to the 2018 Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, access to improved drinking water sources has risen significantly, with about 90% of households having access to safe water. However, only 61% of households have access to improved sanitation facilities. Nafisa Bint Safik is UNICEF country representative.
Poor hygiene and sanitation remain part of that challenge. One important place to act is school. A school without clean water, safe toilets, soap, and privacy cannot be fully safe or inclusive.
Stakeholders say ensuring every child has access to education, healthcare, clean water, protection, and equal opportunities will be crucial to building a brighter future for the next generation. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview this evening focuses on Liberia, where President Joseph Boakai addressed the nation on Tuesday evening following growing public concern over delays by the Drug Enforcement Agency in disclosing the names of suspects linked to the recent seizure of 237 kilograms of cocaine at the country's international airport. While the president mandated a full investigation into the classification, he did not mention a time frame for an outcome of the investigation, including the need to disclose the names of the suspects. Our guest is Sir Young, a security expert in Liberia.
The president's address was necessary, was timely, because this was to alert the nation that the president is not taking lightly the issues of drugs being brought into his country. You know, the issues of drugs come with huge security implications. When you have drugs being brought into any country, especially in the region of our West Africa, it comes with a lot of different features because drug is an organized crime that have participants in various parts of the world.
The president's address followed series of calls from CSOs, security experts like you, including ordinary citizens, for the president to address the issue about the refusal of the Drug Enforcement Agency to disclose the names of suspects linked to the seizure of the drug. But in the president's address, there was nothing mentioned about the need to disclose the names of those involved. What does this signal about transparency in the fight against drug trafficking?
Well, I think from my security point of view, there is not, we would say, never be transparent. For the fact that a lot of people are not aware or don't understand the workings of the law, particularly in complicated cases, complicated investigations like drugs investigation. So this is not just the ordinary case when an individual is being arrested for perpetrating a crime in the community or a crime, but this is international. Liberia still recovering from a long, protracted civil war. Liberia does not have the sophistication. As I say, the Liberian security forces don't have the needed sophistication compared to other countries that are being encountering the drugs in other parts of the world. So Liberia will have to gradually upgrade its capacity, gradually cooperate with international partners, gradually help with identifying these rules that are not being brought to our country. You know, the drug trafficker look for a route that is below the radar. Definitely Liberia is a route that below the radar because Liberia is drug thing is a strange thing in our country. In that though half-spot country where every goods, every commodity that leaves the country are red flag. Liberia is below the radar. Like I said, drugs investigations come with a lot of different complications.
Is this one different from the previous cases of drug seizure?
No, it's not different. What different in every drug cases are the individual, the actors, the participants are the one usually different. But in this case, the suspects, if there are suspects already arrested, we don't know about that. I think the resistance to release name of individuals who may be associated with this drug eye is intended to ensure that people who may be providing intel, people who may know something, people who may have seen something, people who are part of it, so they wouldn't get away. We have experience in the past where there was a major investigation linking to drugs. Because name was laid, the name came up, people were arrested and people confessed name. Those individual names that were made available, the rest of the suspects that were involved, they were able to abscond. So I think in this case, the investigator may have a particular intelligence. And that intelligence may basically be, if the intelligence basically, if we release the name of these people, there are huge possibilities that the other parties, the other participants, we may not be able to get them.
Sam Sayong is a security expert in Liberia. Well, in sport, football headlines tonight as the FIFA World Cup continues with more opening round action on the way. Two African sides are in focus. The Democratic Republic of Congo is currently up against Portugal, marking a remarkable return to the global stage after 52 years away from the competition. As at the time of filing this report, the scoreline remains at 1-1 for both sides. Later tonight, the Black Stars of Ghana begins its campaign against Panama with kickoff set for 11 p.m. our time. And to the records making the headlines after yesterday's matches, France's Kylian Mbappe has become his country's all-time leading scorer with 58 goals, overtaking Olivier Giroud. He's also chasing the all-time FIFA World Cup scoring record. That mark is now shared with Lionel Messi, who scored a hat-trick against Algeria to move level with Miroslav Klose on 16 World Cup goals. Messi also becomes the first player in history to feature in 6 World Cups, with Cristiano Ronaldo expected to match that milestone. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mauduju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms: X, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, at WADR English. Well, coming up next is a rebroadcast of It's You Speaking, our opinion poll series. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.